Let's start an unboxing today. We're going to unbox the Corsa Carbon Fiber Cold Air Return, our cold air intake for my 2017 Grand Sport. We're going to unbox it right now. Got the air filter, I got the air box, the air tube that's going to feed, the hose that's going to connect the air tube on here onto the throttle body, the miscellaneous hose clamps and such that we're going to use. Today we're going to install the Corsa cold air intake on my C7 Corvette and get this so that you can see what's going on and how to do it yourself. Let's start by opening our hood. There we go. Here's what we're going to tackle today. We are going to install the Corsa cold air carbon fiber intake. It'll match the carbon fiber that I already have on my plenum. It's going to fold and come from the throttle body and curve around, and it's a whole new piece that'll go into the cold air intake into the cold fender. To do that, we're going to have to remove this heat extractor, the lower heat extractor. There's 4 7mm bolts. And over there we've got a couple of bolts that holds that piece in, a couple of hose clamps, and I think we have like a couple of little clips and some sensors that we're going to have to pull out of down in here, and the map sensor. Should be a fairly easy install. Anyone can do this with some simple tools in your garage, and we're going to tackle this today. Hope you enjoy. I've already unboxed all of this. I have it in some other videos. Maybe I'll put it in this one, I'm not really sure. But what we're going to do is this is going to be the cold air intakes box. The filter here is going to go into this box. This is going to be the pipe that will hold the map sensor and one of those other breathers that has to go onto here. And it supplies you with all the tubing and the outlets. The Y I should not need. You would need that if you have a Stingray, but Grand Sport, Z06, etc. will not need that because there's only one connection that's needed for that sensor, and the hose clamps. Should be a simple install today. I believe today all we're going to need to do this, I have never done this yet, so if I have to add a tool, I will add it and tell you about it along the way. We have a T20 Torx, a Phillips screwdriver, and I'm just using a 1/4 inch drive, a hand and a ratchet. And we have a 7, an 8, and a 10mm. You can use a flat screwdriver on these things like the hose clamps, but I found that it's a lot easier to just use the 8mm and get on it so that you can get the torque and you don't slip off and cut yourself or mark something up on your car. We're going to start right here. The very first step that I would like to cover is when you're working on a car like this, you don't want it to get scratched and dented or hurt with what you're doing. So the first thing I would recommend you do, I'm just using some old towels that I have left over from different stuff in the house. You know, everybody's got some old towels that you no longer need, that you tend to use as car waxing or something. I'm going to cover up my fenders here. It's going to be a little bit tougher here, but if you keep this tucked back in here just a little bit, you'll be able to work on this because the box comes loose. This is actually fender and stand. So that way we can get this off. And what I'm going to do is just lay this up here on this part of the engine, and that little ribs there will be perfect, and that'll keep anything from getting hurt. And I'm going to lay my tools there so that I have easy access to what I'm working on. And we'll bring those over. Now we're kind of prepped and ready to start taking off our cold air intake. I'll get all my tools that I showed you earlier on here, and then I can talk about them as I go forward as we take this stuff apart. All right, to start this, we're going to get I'm just going to use the hand tool and the 7mm, and we're going to pull up these 4 screws that will remove the lower heat extractor. Once again, this towel here is a great way for us to just put the screws there and hold on to them until we need them again. remove this heat extractor. Next, we're going to remove the, I don't know what this thing's called. It's kind of a little sensor that reads the air to make sure the computer's running at the correct richnesses as well. There's a gray piece right in here. Hopefully you can see that. And you just press it. On the one side, it kind of springs loads, and you can see it here. Just kind of lets it pop off. And we're just going to let it just be loose. We're going to put in our 8mm. This is my 8mm, and I'm going to remove this from the throttle body so we can get that piece pulled loose. Just unscrew the little hose clamp. And that should allow that to just pull loose, just like that. And then there's a second the map sensor here. You just pull the little red thing forward. Hopefully you can see that in the other camera here. And then you just unplug it. So you can see it here. This little piece here slides out. Push the little button here, unclips it, and allows it to come loose from the map sensor. And we're going to just lay that aside for now. And then we're going to remove these two screws, which is going to allow this rest of this piece come off. We use this Torx T20. We're going to unscrew it. There's two screws on here. One there, one here. And then we should be able to just pop this piece loose. I'm not sure what I'm catching on here. Tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take this. There's another hose clamp right here. Let's get this piece out of my way at the same time. So I'm going to loosen this hose clamp. That way we can get this piece off first and just get it out of our way. So this is what we're getting rid of. Air comes in and it has to go through all of these, which cools, actually warms the air before it goes into your engine. Thus a cold air intake is what, by removing all of this, you get cooler air going straight in from the air cleaner, and you don't have all of these ribbles, these pieces here that cause restriction. So between the restriction and the expansion tubes, that's where your biggest gains are. So we're going to take this piece away. And as you can see, while I was working on that, this piece started to fall loose like I thought. It just wasn't lower enough. And this is just a screen, which is also causing some restrictions. We're going to get rid of that. I'm going to reach in here. We're going to pull out the standard stock air filter that came with the car. And now we're going to try to remove this box right here because it's not needed as well. And for that, we're going to need that 10mm that I showed you earlier. There's a couple of bolts right here. So pull out that one. And then there's another one right in here. And I wasn't sure I could use this hand piece or was I going to need this ratchet to get into here, but it looks like it's working just fine now that some of this other stuff has been removed. Pull that one out. It doesn't want to come loose, and I don't want to break that plastic piece. So I'm going to, actually it's coming loose from this side better. Because it's hooked in there tight, so I actually am going to unclip it from there and pull it loose from that spot. That makes this free, and then we can get this out. There we go. Okay, here we are. We have a few pieces that we need to move over to our new cold air return. That's this map sensor, and that's where this little Phillips is going to come in. This sensor detects how much air is going through that sensor that's inside there, and as the air goes across it, so the more air that we're going to be sucking through, the computer can automatically adjust and give it more fuel, since you're getting more air flow with the new one. So we're going to pull this sensor out, set this side apart again. So the way I took it off of the other one, I want to just make sure this is clear. I was holding this part like this when I took it off. So the sensor needs to be in this orientation. This was the top of the car. This is where it sat down below and locked in. So I need to make sure we have the same orientation in this new part, which this is going to go into here like this. So we want to move it into this orientation. Also in here we need to fill this, and it came with the grommet, as you saw in my parts. So we're going to take that grommet and we're going to put it into here, and you're just going to kind of work it a little bit, get it to snap in. Make sure the lip inside here, as you can see there, is all the way around, so it's in the hole correctly. And we've got this part now prepped to go into the car. We have to do a little bit of work on this piece. And what we have to do here is we have to take some grommets off of the old one, right here. So we need to get this grommet out. And we're just gonna poke the little metal piece out so that it can give in the hole, and then pull the grommet through. I'm going to put it back on here just a little bit so I can keep my orientation, because I want to make sure I put back the same way in the new parts, which will be on this piece. Yeah, it'll be right here. So actually we can go ahead and do that right now. And you can see this grommet's kind of got a little a spot here. So we're going to put it right back in the same way it kind of came out. Right back into there. And this piece is going to go, and this is going to be the part snaps in here so that the bolt goes through and sucks it up tight into the car. We got to do the same thing for the two pieces on this side. And there's a pin in the car that snaps and actually pops into there. And then once again, we're going to get this grommet. As you can see right here, it's got a couple of little spots again, kind of fits in there a certain way. So I have the wind-on band is right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on to this piece, this elbow. And I have it so Corsa is going to be, if you would happen to see it in the car, it would read correctly. You're not going to, but I know it is. And then we're going to use that 8mm right here on this band. Make sure it's in the groove. And we're going to tighten this band up a little bit. I'm in the groove. I'm on tight. I'm going to put that clear on the bottom. It's kind of out of sight if you ever give it a little bit of a snug. You don't have to be super tight. It's going to be tight enough on there. And now that piece is now mounted into my piece that's going to go into the fender. We're going to put this box in first. And as I said, there's a bolt that goes here, a bolt that goes here, and this snaps into a little thing right on a little bump down here. So we're going to slide this in, get this into place. I'm going to snap that into that little holder. And it snaps in. Fit this back into the fender. And there's the new box in place. And now we can get our 10mm socket back on, and our little bolts. Always finger start your bolts so you don't cross them. Nothing's worse than cross-threading a bolt and then having an issue with it later. Always finger tight them, get them started. Make sure I'm fit in here. Tighten this down. Come back and finish this one. And that should be it. And that's in there. There's a foam piece here that seals it, makes that all tight. So I have put this clip on. I've secured this onto the bottom of my cold air return to where it's going to hook up to this oil breather. I'm going to sit it up on top of here. And we're going to get this air filter pushed into the air box. It just snaps into there. And then we're going to line up where our cold air intake comes into our throttle body. Use our 10 millimeter. Tighten down these bands just a little bit. Just so they don't slip. That's all we're after. And then we're going to add this other band onto here. I'll put it the same way so they look the same. I'm going to tighten it a little bit onto here. I don't want them tight because I want to be able to get this thing on the car. Now, I don't want them to be seen, so I'm going to put them to the bottom when I tighten them, but I'm going to put them on here like this. We're going to tip this away and get this pushed onto the cold air intake piece, the tube, and then we're going to try to get that put onto the throttle body, like so. And when this is all in the right spot, like it is right there, that's got a seal around here, sealed around, that's tight, this is tight, and that's where that's going to fit. And then we're going to tighten these bands down. Like I say, by putting them on the bottom down here, they're kind of out of sight, a little prettier look than up on top. That way here all you see is just the bands. Adjust that one down there. This piece that I just told you about is going to just curve here a little bit, and we're going to snap it back in. So now we've got our oil breather back on. Once again, it was Z51 packages only have the one. Stingray non-Z51s will have two of these, and there's that Y that you'll put in there, but in this case we don't need it. We're going to snap it right into there. And I brought you over here to the other side so you can see I'm going to hook this back onto here that I took off so I could get in there easier. We're going to put our clamps back on so that it stays in place. We're going to snap this extractor back in and get it to fit down back into the same slots. Goes right here. You need to go back to the 7 millimeter so that we can fit the screws. And I'm going to just kind of start them first so we can get the thing and adjust it a little bit if needed. And this one I'm going to teach you by hand. Get it in here with your hand. It's tight. I get that. But I have dropped that screw and then had to search for it down below. And it's not fun if you drop it without getting it started in here. There we go. Now we can kind of get a feel of the Corsa, the cold air intake, all the carbon fiber flow, so everything's flowing through there and everything's back in. I think it looks great.
I'd like to thank you for watching as I installed the Corsa cold air intake onto my Corvette. I hope you learned something, and if you're putting any cold air intake onto your Corvette, I hope this was a helpful video. Thanks for watching.